So much of the written record does not reflect the culture of the common woman in all the cultures of Europe. It's written entirely by men, priests mostly, elite men who look down on these ways and even demonize them. So here what we're going to do is we're going to look at another angle of view, linguistic. We're going to look at words that still exist in the languages, referring to women as healers, knowers, and seers. So when we look at the original meanings of the words for witch in the old languages, this shows that their spiritual gifts were recognized and honored. A very large body of words for seeress, witch, bard, poet derived from an ancient Indo-European root of seeing, which came to signify also knowing. And so proto-Indo-European weid, to see, to know, gave us proto-Baltic Slavic, weid, and Old Celtic root weid. And all of these gave rise to words for wisdom and seership in the daughter languages, so Russian, Ukrainian, Polish. So Wiedma means witch in Russian, Vidma in Ukrainian, Więźma in Polish, Witka in Icelandic, and these all have that know, see meaning attached to them. In Germanic we have weleda and widlua in Gaulish, very closely related to weled in Welsh. And then in Irish, initially in Old Irish, we have velet, which later on becomes fili or file, and banfile sometimes specifically referring to women. So in Russian, viedma is related to the verb viedat, to see, to know. And we can see this also, the same connection in Italian, Spanish, Latin, French. Our word vision in English is still from this same root. And we can even connect this to the Vedas, which is the ancient Sanskrit word for knowledge. And so a whole body of oral tradition is referred to as the Vedas. Here at Viedma Baba, this is how it's written in Russian, my old drawing of the elder witch. And then also from this root, we get a whole other group of Slavic names for woman who knows. And so Vjestica in Croatian, same pronunciation pretty much. In Serbian, different script. Bulgarian, Vještica, knower. Macedonian, Vešterka, also knower. Polish, Vještica. So these are all very close in pronunciation. They spell them differently. And then we have Belarus, also Wiedźma. So those are some of the names. Now if we go over to Gaulish to find Widlua, there's not a lot of Gaulish writing that has survived. But the longest text that we have in the language was inscribed on a lead plaque, and this is known as Le Plomb de Larzac in France. And so the first lines read, "Send the charm of these women against the names below. This is a witch charm, bewitching witches," or alternate translation, of a bewitching witch. And so in Gaulish, Brictom widluas tigontias so. So this is an important piece of information. It comes from a tomb, refers to a sisterhood of sorceresses called Widlua. They don't really understand this text very well. The linguists are pounding their heads on it. They don't have a lot to compare Gaulish to. But the linguist Yves Lambert summarizes it as an appeal to the goddess Adsagsona against a group of women who got a witch, Severa Tertionitsa, to influence judges in a trial that the supplicant on this plaque is involved in. She asked the goddess to turn back the spell that was cast by these other witches. And so Lambert and other linguists compare the word seeress here, Widlua, to that of the legendary Irish prophetess Fedil. So very closely related linguistically, and the C phonological shifts over to Ireland, but it's the same basic root. In the spell, Widlua appears in the phrase Bnannom Bricto, women's spell, and we're going to see that in Irish as Bricta Ban as we go along. Then there's a whole group of names that simply mean wise woman, including in English. So we have Sabia in Spanish, Sage Femme in French, Latin, Saga. This was one of the primary words for witch in Latin. In English, there is the word cunning woman, which is related to an archaic word ken, to know. So you'll hear about kennings, things that are metaphors for other things that were used a lot in medieval times. In Old Norse, we have Fylkingskona, much knowing woman, or Visendakona, wise woman. Finnish, Teteja, knower, seers. Hungarian, Kohali, wise woman. Irish, Banfasa, or also Kaljachfasa, wise old woman. And this is from a proto-Irish word meaning knowledge that ultimately dates back to that same proto-Indo-European root, weid, to see. And then finally, from a different root, we also have in Russian, Znaharka, which means knower in the feminine. A whole other group of words refer to the prophetess. And so in Old Norse, Spakona, prophetic woman, Spafara, prophetic traveler. This refers to spirit flight. And then there are also Norse loanwords into Scottish, spying woman, spy wife, prophetic woman. In Old Irish, we have fa, fath, faith, which means a prophet and a poet. And this is related to the Welsh word for poetry or song, gwawl. And this later on gets specified in Irish as bonfaith, to be specific, a woman prophet. And then Latin has vates, which is not original, but is a loanword from Gaulish, out of this same root. And so all of these come out of the proto-Indo-European word wet, and it means to blow, inspire, arouse, inspired utterance. Swa wican tacheth. This is a phrase that an Anglo-Saxon translator added to a penitential book that originated in France in Latin, so he renders it into Old English. They bring their offering to earth-fast stone, and also to trees and to well springs. Swa wican tacheth, as the witches teach. So this is an amazing piece of knowledge that he managed to, little fragment that got passed on to us. Because as the witches teach imply, first of all, that witches are seen as teachers, as spiritual authorities, and that their teachings have to do with reverence for the earth, waters, stones, trees, nature, sacraments. And we have a reference in Old English laws. Well, they're supposedly laws of King Edgar. They were probably written by some monk or another. And they forbid treawerdung, stanawerdung, wellawerdung, paying reverence to trees, stones, and well springs. And this word werdung is related to the word worship and also to worthy in other words in English. So it's a very honorable term. In the penitential books of the early Middle Ages, we see priests forbidding people, quote, to show reverence for the fountains, to adore springs, to make offerings to founts, to release, to pray to the fountains, to set lights before them, to bring candles. And so we see a woman here carrying a hag's taper down to the water, and maybe perhaps like the 11th century women in England who are described holding dialogues in the night with the spirit guardian of a well and asking questions and receiving answers. This is from the Gesta Herwardis. There's also a phrase, waking the well, and this means to sit up all night in vigil beside the well. And so a song says, I the well awoke, sitting up for vision or some other spiritual guidance. These are all forms of meditation, and we have a reference in the Havamal, the Norse Icelandic writing. It is time to chant in the sage's chair at the well of Urd. I saw, but said not. I saw and thought. And this well of Urd, of course, is named after the eldest of the three Norns. And so this is the well of becoming. It's a well of destiny and a place you go into depths, into the deepness to receive guidance. And to do this, there's actually a phrase in Icelandic, utiseta, which means literally sitting out on the land for vision and any kind of spiritual power. And so maybe for days, maybe for hours, for long periods until you drop all of your baggage and you're able to directly connect to spirit. The Germans had a parallel term, hljóðarsaga, hearing sitting. So there again, just attuning the spirit to receive messages through these extra normal psychic faculties.